Welcome to our deep dive into winter 2025 anime.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
With over 40 new episodes airing every week, it's like, where do you even begin?
Seriously, it's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, so we're using this Game Rant article ranking the season's top shows
Mm,
as a kind of starting point.
mm.
But even then, it's like, how do you sift through all the noise and figure out what's really worth your time?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Exactly. And that's kind of the mission of this deep dive, right?
Totally. Think of us as your curators, helping you cut through the clutter and find those hidden gems.
Yeah, totally. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the article's cutoff for consideration was March 2nd, 2025. So
Right.
some shows might have evolved since then,
Yeah,
but, it still gives us a pretty good snapshot of the season's early standouts.
for sure.
So let's jump right in. The undisputed king of the hill, at least according to Game Rant, is Solo Leveling Season 2, A Rise from the Shadow. I mean, were you surprised to see it at number one?
Not really, to be honest. The manhwa was already hugely popular, and A1 Pictures, the studio behind the anime, they're known for their high production values. So
Oh, yeah, yeah.
be sure it was kind of a no-brainer.
And it really shows, the action sequences in Season 2 are just phenomenal, like full-on blockbuster movie level.
Oh, yeah.
But what surprised me is how much more there is to it than just spectacle. You know what I mean?
Right. You're not just getting mindless action. Season 2 really digs into the lore, revealing all this crucial information about the S ranks, the monarchs, that whole system governing hunters and their powers.
Yeah, totally.
And we're also getting these surprisingly poignant emotional beats that add so much depth to Sung Jinwoo.
Yeah, he's like this ridiculously overpowered hunter, but he's also dealing with grief responsibility.
Yeah.
The weight of basically saving the world.
Exactly. It makes him so much more relatable.
Oh, yeah, totally. I actually saw a comment on the article speculating that if the anime keeps doing well, we might even get adaptations of Jinwoo's son's story later down the line.
Oh, wow.
I know, right?
That wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, the world of Solo Leveling is so rich, you could easily tell multiple stories in that universe.
Totally. And given the franchise's popularity, it's like
Oh, yeah.
a license to print money.
Exactly.
Okay, so Solo Leveling is clearly a juggernaut. But let's shift gears to another anime that's been generating buzz, though maybe not quite as much. Dr. Stone. Science Future Season 4 kicked off this winter, and let's just say not all the fans are thrilled with where things are going.
Yeah, I've seen some mixed reactions online.
Yeah, I saw one comment that was like, Dr. Stone's old seasons were great, but Season 4 has an awfully bad start.
Ouch.
I know, right?
Uh,
Though, to be fair, it's only a few episodes in. What do you think is contributing to this kind of mixed reaction?
well, I think part of it might be that Science Future's the fourth season, So for newcomers, it's probably a bit tough to jump in at this point.
Right, you're kind of thrown into the deep end.
Exactly. And even for longtime fans, it seems like this new arc is a bit slower paced than what they're used to.
So what's going on in this season? What's the main storyline?
Well, basically, the Kingdom of Science is heading to the United States.
Yeah.
And let's just say they don't exactly get a warm welcome.
Oh.
Yeah, there's definitely some conflict brewing. And a lot of that revolves around this new character, Zeno Houston Wingfield.
Ah, yes. He's like Senku's scientific arch nemesis, right?
He is, but he's also Senku's former mentor.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really complex dynamic. Zeno is this brilliant scientist, but his views on science and how it should be used are very different from Senku's.
So it's like a clash of ideology.
Exactly. And I think that's what's making this season so interesting. It's forcing Senku to confront not just external threats, but also his own beliefs about science and its role in society.
Okay, so we've got high-octane action with solo leveling and brainy scientific intrigue with Dr. Stone. But let's be honest, not everyone is here for the big, flashy mainstream hit. Sometimes you just want a show that flies under the radar but delivers pure quality. And that's where Medalist comes in. It's a sports anime, but with a really unique twist. What's caught your attention about it?
For me, it's the central relationship between Inori, our aspiring figure skater. She's only 11, by the way, and her coach, Tsukasa. Their dynamic is just so wonderfully nuanced and surprisingly realistic.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not your typical sports anime trope.
No, not at all. They're both facing an uphill battle. Inori is trying to break into a sport that often favors older, more experienced athletes.
Right.
And Tsukasa is dealing with the prejudice of those who underestimate him as a coach because of his past.
Yeah, that's a really interesting layer to his character.
It is, and yet amidst all these challenges, their bond remains so strong and supportive.
It's really heartwarming.
It is. The animation really captures the beauty and grace of figure skating, but it's the quiet moments between Inori and Tsukasa, their shared determination and unspoken understanding that truly make this show special.
And let's not forget the humor. The Game Rant article mentioned how Inori's facial expressions are basically meme-worthy.
Oh, absolutely. She's got
Yeah.
this hilarious mix of youthful exuberance and laser-like focus that just shines through in her every move.
It's a great balance of heartwarming drama and laugh-out-loud comedy.
Exactly.
It's funny because in the comments I saw someone suggesting to add an anime called Dragon Raja to the list, even though it wasn't in the original ranking, which just goes to show there's always something new to discover, even when you think you've got a handle on the season.
Absolutely. The world of anime is vast.
Speaking of discoveries, I think it's time we dive into another show that's been quietly captivating audiences. The Apothecary Diaries, Season 2.
Ah, yes, the continuing adventures of Mao Mao, our favorite poison-savvy apothecary. Now, if you haven't seen Season 1, you're definitely missing out.
I know, right? Season 1 was a surprise hit. And it seems like Season 2 is picking up right where it left off, with Mao Mao using her sharp wit and knowledge of medicine to solve mysteries within the Imperial Palace. What is it about this show that you find so compelling?
Well, for starters, Mao Mao is just such a refreshing protagonist. She's intelligent, resourceful, and completely uninterested in the typical romantic tropes that often plague historical dramas.
She's like, I'm here to solve mysteries and dispense herbal remedies, not swoon over some handsome prince.
Exactly. But it's not just Mao Mao. The world of the Apothecary Diaries is meticulously crafted with a rich blend of historical detail, political intrigue, and a touch of the supernatural.
Oh, wow.
The animation is stunning, the pacing is deliberate, and the mysteries are genuinely engaging. It's a show that rewards your attention.
It really is. It's like a historical whodunit with a dash of humor and a whole lot of heart.
A perfect way to describe it. You know what's fascinating about both Medalist and the Apothecary Diaries is how they both feature these strong, independent female protagonists who defy traditional expectations.
That's such a good point. And it makes you wonder, are these shows indicative of a larger trend in anime, a shift towards more complex and nuanced female characters? Is this something that's been building in recent seasons, or is winter 2025 a turning point?
That's a question worth exploring. And to do that, I think we need to take a closer look at some of the other anime on the list. See if we can spot any patterns or recurring themes.
Excellent idea.
Yeah.
We'll continue our deep dive into winter 2025 anime in part 2, so stay tuned.
It really is amazing how many strong female leads we're seeing this season.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You've got Maromao, in the Apothecary Diaries, she's like so cunning and resourceful, like she's just maneuvering through all that palace intrigue. And then you've got Inori and Medalist, she's just like this tiny ball of determination, like taking on the whole figure skating world.
Right.
It's really inspiring.
It really is. It makes you wonder if this is like a sign of things to come. Like, are we going to see more anime with these kind of complex and well-developed female characters?
I hope so. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. But before we get too deep into that, let's jump back to the Game Rant list and talk about another anime that's been getting a lot of attention. Blue Exorcist. The Blue Knight Saga. Now, this one's a continuation of a much older series, right?
It is, yeah. Blue Exorcist originally premiered back in 2011.
Wow, so it's been around for a while.
It has. And this new season, the Blue Knight Saga, it's actually a prequel.
Oh, okay.
It delves into a really crucial part of Rin Okumura's backstory. He's the protagonist and his twin brother Yukio. It explores their connection to their father, who just so happens to be Satan.
Whoa, talk about family drama.
Right.
But would you say this is a good entry point for someone who's never seen Blue Exorcist before?
Probably not. The Blue Knight Saga, it really relies on knowledge of like events and relationships that were established in previous seasons.
Right.
It would be like starting a book midway through. You'd miss out on a lot of context.
So if you're a longtime fan, this is like a must-watch.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're new to the world of Blue Exorcist, maybe start at the beginning. Work your way up to this arc. Now let's switch gears to something a bit lighter. You mentioned Sakamoto Days earlier, and I have to admit the premise, a retired hitman running a convenience store, it sounds absolutely bonkers.
I know, right? It's so out there.
But that's kind of what makes it so intriguing.
It is. Sakamoto Days is like this perfect blend of action comedy and slice of life,
Oh, wow. So it's like a genre mashup?
It is. You've got Tara Sakamoto, this legendary assassin. He's trying to live a normal life, with his wife and daughter, but his past keeps catching up to her.
It's the classic, you can take the man out of the action, but you can't take the action out of the man scenario.
Exactly. But what sets Sakamoto Days apart is the humor. Like, Sakamoto's deadpan delivery and his interactions with the other characters are just
I
hilarious.
can imagine.
And the animation is top-notch, too, especially during the fight scenes.
From what I've seen online, the art style is really distinctive, too.
It is. It's like this really cool mix of realistic character designs with exaggerated expressions and dynamic movements.
So it's got its own unique look.
It does.
Okay, color me intrigued. Sakamoto Days definitely sounds like something I need to check out. Now, before we move on, there's another anime on the list I wanted to touch on. Toilet-bound Hanako-kun Season 2. Now, that title alone piques my curiosity.
I know, right? It's definitely a memorable title.
It is. So, what's it all about?
Well, Tolipan Hanako-kun is basically a supernatural comedy. It's got this really unique visual style, and it revolves around Nene Yashiro, this high school girl, who summons Hanako-kun.
Who's Hanako-kun?
He's a ghost who haunts the school's bathroom and grants wishes.
A wish-granting ghost who lives in a bathroom?
I know, it's pretty wild, right?
That's a premise I haven't heard before.
And the animation is just gorgeous. It's like this blend of vibrant colors with darker, almost gothic elements.
Interesting.
And the characters are so engaging, especially Hanako-kun. He's mischievous and enigmatic, and Nene, she's initially terrified of him, but they gradually become friends.
So it's like a spooky but also heartwarming story.
Yeah, you could say that. And season 2 continues to delve into the mysteries surrounding Hanako-kun and like the other supernatural beings that inhabit the school.
Okay, so we got a good mix here, action, comedy, supernatural intrigue. But something we haven't really touched on yet is the political landscape of winter 2025 anime. I know that might sound a bit heavy, but I'm curious, have you noticed any political undertones or messages in these shows?
It's interesting you bring that up because while none of these shows are like overtly political, there are some subtle thematic undercurrents, that reflect current anxieties and societal trends.
Okay, like what?
Well, take Dr. Stone, for example. The conflict between Senku and Zeno, it can be interpreted as a commentary on the role of science and technology in society.
Right.
Senku, he represents a more idealistic view of science as a force for good, while Zeno embodies a more pragmatic, even ruthless approach.
It's like the two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And it's a debate that's very relevant to our world today. With all the advancements in AI and gene editing, it's like we're constantly grappling with the ethical implications of scientific progress.
And it's not just Dr. Stone. Even in a show like Solo Leveling, which is primarily an action fantasy, there are these subtle critiques of power structures and the exploitation of the weak.
Right.
Sung Jin-woo, despite becoming ridiculously powerful, he remains empathetic to those who are struggling.
He does.
He uses his strength to protect the vulnerable, which is kind of a direct challenge to the status quo, where the strong often prey on the weak.
That's a really good point.
So even though these shows aren't explicitly political, they still engage with real-world issues and anxieties, albeit through the lens of fantastical storytelling.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that makes anime so compelling. It can entertain us while also making us think critically about the world around us.
It's a great reminder that entertainment and social commentary aren't mutually exclusive. But you know what else I find fascinating? The sheer diversity of animation styles this season. We've got the hyper-realistic action of Solo Leveling, the stylized fluidity of Sakamoto Days, the whimsical charm of Medalist, and the haunting beauty of Toilet-bound Hanako-kun.
It's true. Winter 2025 is like a visual feast.
It really is. It's a testament to the creativity and artistry of the anime industry,
Right. Each show has its own unique visual language.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that anime is more than just a genre. It's an art form with endless possibilities.
I love, speaking of possibilities, you mentioned earlier that some viewers felt Dr. Stone. Science Future was starting a bit slow.
Yeah.
Do you think the pacing is like a deliberate choice by the creators?
It's a great question. It could be that they're setting the stage for something bigger, something that requires a slower burn to build tension and anticipation.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to flesh out the characters and their relationships a bit more before diving into the main conflict.
That's a good point. It's like the difference between a sprint and a marathon,
Right, both can be exhilarating in their own way.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that every anime has its own rhythm, its own way of unfolding its story.
I agree.
And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if we see more Solo Leveling in the future, even beyond this current season. The franchise is just too popular to ignore.
Yeah, they'd be crazy not to capitalize on that.
And like we discussed earlier, there's that whole untapped storyline with Jinwoo's son.
Right.
That could easily be its own spin-off series.
Totally.
Dr. Stone's old seasons were great, but season 4 has an awfully bad start.
Ouch.
I know, right? But, to be fair, every show goes through growing pains, I guess.
Yeah, I think part of the issue might be that the focus has shifted. In the earlier seasons, it was very much about Senku using his scientific knowledge to rebuild civilization, like, from scratch.
It was like watching a really cool science experiment unfold.
Exactly, but in science future, the challenges are more complex, more global. It's less about rediscovering lost technologies and more about navigating the complexities of international relations.
Right. Like Senku's not just dealing with the stone world anymore. He's facing off against other nations and ideologies.
Yeah, and I think that shift in tone might be throwing some viewers off.
Hmm.
They're expecting the same kind of fast-paced invention of the week structure, and science future is just a different
It's
beast.
slower, more deliberate, more focused on the human element of conflict.
And you know what? That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different.
Totally. And it's cool that the creators are willing to take risks, to push the boundaries of what Dr. Stone can be.
I agree. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the action-packed spectacle of solo leveling to the scientific intrigue of Dr. Stone, from the heartwarming charm of Medalist to the supernatural mysteries of toilet-bound Hanako-kun.
And everything in between.
Exactly. Winter 2025 has been a wild ride.
It really has. And I think it's safe to say that the world of anime is alive and well.
Oh, yeah. Thriving, even.
So whether you're a seasoned anime veteran or a curious newcomer.
There's something out there for everyone.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
keep exploring, keep watching, keep those conversations going.
Because that's what makes this community so special.
And on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Winter 2025 anime. We'll see you next time.